I'd like to start by expressing my gratitude to the Government Minister who's at the dispatch box and the Secretary of State for tabling amendments on regulating the student letting season and on rent in advance within this bill. Both are issues that I've been campaigning on. Over a year ago I went to Leeds University Union's cost of living event where these issues and others were brought to me in stark contrast, and also the NUS cost of living inquiry and taking the student APPG led by our former colleague Paul Blomfield, in which I served as well. I'd really like to thank the government for tabling amendments 18 and 53 on regulating the student letting season. This is working on that work of Paul Blomfield, who spearheaded this in his constituent Sheffield Central. I'm therefore withdrawing my new clause 4 and urging support for the government amendments. Without regulating the letting season, students are pressured and intimidated by the rental market to sign tenancies with people they hardly know, sometimes 9 months before they are due to move. Students of all backgrounds are forking out deposits to hold properties, leaving care leavers, estranged students from low economic backgrounds with a choice of either spending money they don't have or risking housing insecurity for the next academic year. The government's decision to limit the letting season to 6 months gives these students the space and time needed to create healthy social relationships and save the money needed for a deposit for the next academic year, drastically improving the mental well-being of our student. The bill's government new clause 13 and 14 bring landmark measures to ensure students are not subject to excessive and exploitative upfront costs by limiting rent in advance, creating a fairer and more accessible rental market. For example, my constituent Olivia was once required to pay £2,500, 6 months' rent upfront just to move into a 4-bed shared property. She's moving to Leeds to begin her masters, leaving her without savings to move to a new city. This is not how we should treat any person vulnerable to the rental market or looking to be an asset for the community. This amendment will help prevent such unreasonable demands and alleviate financial pressure on tenants. So I'm withdrawing my new clause 3, limiting rents in advance, and urge support for the government's new clauses 13 and 14. My constituent Olivia's upfront cost was so high because she could not get a guarantor. Now we have set limits on rent in advance, we must deal with the other side of the issue faced by renters, the requirement for tenants to provide guarantors. This practice can exclude individuals who cannot meet these demands, limiting their access to secure housing. By simply not being related to someone who owns UK property, you can be excluded from signing on to basic rental accommodation in a shared house, despite being an adult and earning your own income. My proposed amendment seeks to place tighter controls on restrictions for the requirement for tenants to provide a guarantor, especially in case where a tenant's rental history or income offers sufficient security. By refining these provisions, we can balance the legitimate interests of landlords with the rights and needs of tenants. Circumstances which my amendment suggests guarantors should be restricted are as follows. Reasonable assessment of personal income, including state benefits received and any other lawful source of income, is sufficient for them to pay the full rent due under the tenancy. That arrangements will be made for housing benefit or the housing element and universal credit to be paid directly in respect of rent to the relevant person, meaning the landlord. That the relevant person has entered into a contract of insurance in which they are insured against non-payment of rent. And I know that has been covered by other amendments and other speeches today. Or such other circumstances may be described in regulation by the Secretary of State, giving the government wide avenues to implement this amendment. The expectation that tenants, despite entering into legally binding rental agreements, must secure third-party guarantors undermines the very purpose of such contracts. For many students, particularly those who cannot rely on family support, such as care leavers or estranged individuals, this requirement can make renting nearly impossible. The Renters Rights Bill provides a generational opportunity to raise standards of living in the UK to where it should be. As I'm not going to be pushing my clause on guarantors to vote, I welcome further discussion and engagement with the Minister as we progress into laws and how we can change the reliance on guarantors in our rental markets. I know he is open to that discussion. In my constituent, Leeds Central and Headingley, 44.8% of constituents live in private rentals, compared to a national average of 19.4%, and Leeds is home to a student population of over 36,000 non-home students. This bill is imperative to my constituents. Through these measures, I'm hopeful we can establish a rental market that promotes fairness, reduce inequality and strengthens community across the UK. I'm very happy to support the government amendments today. Thank you.